In our big Bio 202 picture for this semester, liverworts, the phylum Markentiophyta, is its own clade, stemming from the most basal position within the plant kingdom. They too have their gametophytes and sporophytes, and we could be talking about them, but we won't. You already have enough of a picture after having experienced mosses and ferns in the previous video. Now, we usually have liverworts on hand in our plant laboratories, and I parade them in front of students to illustrate another twist, something different about reproduction, specifically asexual reproduction, in which the plant simply clones itself. Now, probably some of you are aware that we do this deliberately for the plants in agriculture. For example, you can take a cutting off of a mother plant and either root it or graft it onto another plant. Everything that grows from the cutting, which is also called a scion, is genetically identical to the mother plant and will have the same properties. A great example of this is the navel orange. Navel oranges, they have no seeds. So how do you get a navel orange tree? Well, there once was a tree that was this weird mutant. It made these bizarre seedless fruits. But the fruits were delicious. And so people took cuttings off of that tree and they started their own trees. And then others took cuttings from those trees, and you get the idea. One single tree became spectacularly successful, despite the fact that it's completely unable to produce seed and therefore reproduce sexually. Now, in the case of liverworts, they clone and propagate themselves with these crazy little structures called gemma cups. And they look just like little cups or bowls that are sitting right on top of the liverwort. Inside the cups, you have gemmi, singular gemma, which look like little pale green lima beans. These are the liverwort's little clone buddies, and when they detach from the cup, they usually land nearby to the mama liverwort because, they're pretty large and they're not going to disperse very far. And because they're large, they're able to quickly grow into another liverwort, just like mom, because after all, it is a genetic clone of mom. Now, liverworts are totally capable of reproducing sexually as well. They make their own sporophytes, differently than a moss, but the end result is the same. Sexually recombined spores that are genetically different from mom, and these are tiny and released at elevation, so they end up getting dispersed to greater distances than the gemmy do. Okay, so the liverwort is producing genetic clones for short distance dispersal and genetically diverse spores for long distance dispersal. Now, the logic here is beautiful and inescapable. If you stay close to mom like the gemma clones do, you will more likely experience the same conditions in which mom had great success. So it's really not a bad idea to replicate a successful genotype without potentially messing things up with recombination. On the other hand, there's no guarantee that conditions will be the same if you disperse to greater distances. It might be wetter, might be drier, might have more sun, less sun, different chemistry in the soil. Now, you don't know what it's going to be like if you go far away. And so you're actually improving your chances of hitting the right genotype for any given set of conditions by making your spores genetically variable. Yeah, it's kind of neat, huh? And we see this pattern over and over again in plants and in animals as well. Aphids, for instance, are able to reproduce both sexually and asexually, and they switch back and forth depending on their need to disperse. The asexual generations have no wings, and they just stay on the plant where they're born. But when there's a need to disperse, we not only produce winged aphids, those winged aphids are sexually reproduced and genetically variable. Yeah, makes sense. Now, in addition to liverworts, when we meet as a class, we usually have on hand some other plants to represent some of the other basal branches on the plant phylogeny. We have spike mosses and whisk ferns in our greenhouse to show off. sometimes horsetails, which are in the Monilophyta together with the ferns. There was one semester where I brought in Isoedes, which is a quillwort, and Lycopodium, the club moss. But the honest truth is that these plants are kind of hard to keep alive, and students, that's you usually don't show very much enthusiasm for my efforts at providing such diversity. For the testable Bio 202 lab content, as covered in these first three videos, it's just going to be the liverwort discussion in this video, adding to the mosses and ferns from the previous video, and the non-plant taxa that we managed to get to in the first of these plants lab videos. Okay. These three videos will comprise the instruction in Plants Lab 1. Starting with the next video, Plants Lab 2 will cover the diversity of seed plants, plant vascular anatomy, and how wood is made.